Statements by ministers.
Je reconnais le très
I
honorable
recognize the right
Premier ministre.
honorable Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Today I rise to speak about the conflict in Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank. Over a week ago, Canadians awoke to horrifying images coming out of Israel after the terrorist organization Hamas launched an attack of unspeakable brutality. J'aimerais faire le point sur les mesures que prend notre gouvernement pour aider et protéger les Canadiens touchés. Et j'aimerais ensuite vous parler des véritables inquiétudes que cette situation cause dans la population ici au pays, pour les Canadiens de confession juive et musulmane, pour les Canadiens d'origine arabe et pour tous les Canadiens. Monsieur le Président, parmi les milliers de personnes bouleversées par cette violence, 5 Canadiens ont été assassinés par les terroristes du Hamas. 3 Canadiens sont portés disparus et pourraient être tenus en otage. Je sais que les pensées de tous les parlementaires et de tous les Canadiens sont avec eux et leurs proches. Le Canada demande au Hamas de libérer tous les otages immédiatement. 10 Canadian Armed Forces flights have departed Tel Aviv so far, with approximately 1,300 passengers on board. In addition, the first bus has departed the West Bank and brought Canadians to safety in Jordan. Le ministre des Affaires mondiales et nos ambassades dans la région travaillent sans relâche afin de leur venir en aide. Travaillent sans relâche afin d'entrer en contact avec les Canadiens touchés et de leur venir en aide. Et on collabore de près avec nos alliés et nos partenaires pour aider les gens à quitter Gaza, la Cisjordanie et Israël de la façon la plus sécuritaire et rapide possible. We're also deeply concerned by the dire and worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Canada is calling for unimpeded humanitarian access and a humanitarian corridor so that essential aid like food, fuel, and water can be delivered to civilians in Gaza. It is imperative that this happen. Depuis la fin de semaine dernière, je me suis entretenu avec les dirigeants de toute la région, comme le Premier ministre d'Israël, Benjamin Netanyahu, le président de l'autorité palestinienne, Mahmoud Abbas, le roi Abdallah de Jordanie, le président des Émirats arabes unis et aujourd'hui le président El-Sisi d'Égypte et l'émir du Qatar. J'ai discuté avec eux la libération des otages canadiens et de tous les otages, de la fourniture d'une assistance humanitaire, de l'aide à apporter aux Canadiens pour qu'ils soient en sécurité, ainsi que de la paix et de la stabilité dans la région. La ministre Joly était sur le terrain en fin de semaine. Elle dirige nos efforts diplomatiques en travaillant jour et nuit, et elle rencontre des Israéliens, des Palestiniens et d'autres partenaires de la région. Ministre Blair is working tirelessly to ensure that CAF evacuation flights are getting as many Canadians out of the region as possible. And Minister Hussein is leading conversations with his international counterparts with
I apologize to interrupt the Right Honourable Prime Minister, but of course to remember that we are to refer to members by their titles, either titles as positions that they hold or as members of Parliament, but not by their names.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of National Defence is working tirelessly to ensure that CAF evacuation flights are getting as many Canadians out of the region as possible, and the Minister of International Development is leading conversations with his international counterparts and with aid organizations, making sure essential support is getting to affected people. Canada has committed an initial $10 million in humanitarian assistance to provide essentials like food, water, emergency medical aid, and protection assistance to those affected by the crisis in Gaza, the West Bank, and Israel. And I want to be clear, none of this aid is going to Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization that slaughtered and brutalized innocent people. Hamas continues to commit unspeakable atrocities and are trying to instigate further acts of violence against Jewish people. Let me be clear about Hamas. They are not freedom fighters. They are not a resistance. They are terrorists. Terrorism is always indefensible, and nothing can justify Hamas's acts of terror and the killing, maiming, and abduction of civilians. But let me also be extremely clear that Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people nor their legitimate aspirations. They do not speak for Muslim or Arab communities. They do not represent the better future that Palestinians and their children deserve. The only thing they stand for is more suffering for Israeli and Palestinian civilians. Canada fully supports Israel's right to defend itself in accordance with international law. And in Gaza, as elsewhere, international law, including humanitarian law, must be upheld by all. Even wars have rules. Canada is always steadfast in our commitment to the rule of law. The rule of law is what we stand up for here in Parliament, what we advocate through diplomacy, and what we will always fight for, no matter the circumstance. Ici, au pays, les émotions sont
Here in our
extrêmement
country,
vives.
emotions are running
Ça
extremely
s'explique en
high.
partie par le fait
It can be
que
explained
beaucoup
in
de
part
ces
by
histoires
the
sont
fact that
aussi
many
des
of
histoires
these stories
canadiennes.
are Canadian stories.
En raison de notre diversité,
That's due to
beaucoup
our
d'entre nous
diversity.
connaissons quelqu'un qui a été touché.
Many of us know someone
Ou
who's
on
been
connaît
affected,
quelqu'un qui connaît
or
quelqu'un.
we know someone who knows
J'ai
someone.
rencontré des membres de la communauté
I met
juive en deuil
members of the
suite
Jewish
à cette
community
tragédie.
grieving in the
On
aftermath
a
of
parlé des
this
jeunes
tragedy.
qui on m'a parlé des jeunes qui ont
I was
été abattus
told about young people
durant un
who
festival
were
de
shot
musique,
down during a music
du
festival.
meurtre et de l'enlèvement de
The murder
personnes
and
âgées,
kidnapping
de femmes,
of
d'enfants.
older people, of women, of
Des
children.
membres de la communauté juive m'ont parlé
Members of the
d'amis
Jewish community
morts
talked
trop
to
jeunes
us
et de leur
about
peur d'avoir des
friends who died
proches
too soon
peut-être pris
and
en
their
otage.
fears of seeing their loved ones taken
I met with
hostage.
leaders from the Muslim and Palestinian community. They told me about how families in Gaza are spreading themselves between homes to prevent the possibility that they could all be lost in a single moment. That from Canada, they worry desperately about their loved ones, but because electricity has been cut off, they have to rely on sporadic 15-second phone calls to know who is safe. Their worries aren't just for people overseas. The worries are about people here at home, too. Across our country, both Jewish parents and Muslim parents wonder whether their kids are safe at school. Families are worried about going to places of worship. Jewish people are wondering if they shouldn't wear their Star of David or kippah in public. Muslim and Arab people are worried about being thought of as terrorists once again. The list of worries is endless, and the fear is real. There are rising instances of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. We saw the reports of hate crimes against a Muslim woman in Montreal and at a Hebrew school in Toronto. And all of our hearts break at the horrifying news that came out of Illinois yesterday. There are so many people in Canada who are afraid of the escalating tension here at home, who are scared as they watch horrible things happen to people in places that they love in the Middle East, who for years have lived somewhere between fear and hope. Fear that escalation will tear them further apart, and hope that one day peace could finally take root. Il ne faut jamais oublier que la diversité fait notre
Never
force.
forget that diversity is our
Le
strength.
Canada accueille des gens de tous les
Canada
horizons qui
welcomes
revendiquent
people
une
from all
multitude
horizons
d'identités.
who have
Nous sommes un
a
pays
plethora
de
of
voisins,
identities.
de
We are a
collègues,
country of neighbors,
d'amis
of
et de
colleagues,
familles
of friends,
qui
of
incarnent
family.
cette diversité et qui
We
la vivent
represent
à
that
chaque jour.
diversity and we live it every day.
Maintenant, plus que jamais,
Now,
on doit
more
se
than ever,
rassembler
we have to
et
unite.
éviter de laisser les inquiétudes,
We have
les
to
soupçons et
avoid
la
letting
méfiance
worries and
nous
suspicion
séparer.
separate us.
Remember, it's a short path from mistrusting your neighbor to entrenching division. A peaceful society does not happen by accident and won't continue without effort. We live in a country that upholds the freedom of expression, including religious and cultural expression, and every Canadian should feel safe doing so. This is the right and freedom every Canadian has under our Charter. Canadian liberty is not about taking away the freedoms of others, but living in a way that expands and strengthens freedom for everyone. Monsieur le Président, comme Canadiens,
Mr.
nous avons
Speaker,
prouvé qu'il est
as
possible de
Canadians,
bâtir
we've proven
et de
that it's
définir un
possible to
pays
build
en
and
se fondant
define a
et en
country
s'ancrant en des
based
valeurs
on,
communes.
anchored in, common
Le
values.
Canada ne se définit pas par
Canada
une seule
is not
identité
defined by one
historique,
single
culturelle,
identity,
religieuse,
whether it be
ethnique ou
historical or
autre,
ethnic or
mais
religious or
par nos
anything
valeurs
else,
partagées.
but through shared values.
We are, once again, at a moment where our shared values are being put to the test. Unrest is being felt in ways big and small. Canadians are deeply worried, no matter their background. This is why we must hold on to our commitment to the idea of this country. We've been tested before about who we are and what we are. But the core values of Canada have always been there to guide us, to make us stronger, to bring us together when forces or events try to divide us. Our diversity is our strength. We can never forget this. This is a time to reach out, to support one another. Ask a friend, a family member, or a colleague how they're doing. Reach out to members of a different faith. Offer to listen. Offer to help where you can. People are not all right. So let's make sure they're not alone. As I've said before, the Canadian idea of liberty is an inclusive freedom, expansive freedom. Let's remember who we are as Canadians and what we stand for here and around the world. Respect for everyone's rights and freedoms and the rule of law. Respect for different languages, ethnicities, and religions. Respect for human life. And respect for each other. Thank you.